Good morning, I'm Taylor Wilson, and today is Monday, Labor Day, September 1st, 2025. This is USA Today's The Excerpt. Today, a judge has blocked the government from deporting several unaccompanied migrant Guatemalan children. Plus, Trump says he will sign an executive order mandating a voter ID requirement, and our billionaires holding on to a giving pledge. A federal judge yesterday issued a restraining order blocking the Trump administration from deporting 10 unaccompanied migrant Guatemalan children and potentially hundreds more in federal custody. The move stops deportations of the children aged 10 to 17 for 2 weeks after the National Immigration Law Center filed an emergency request. Migrant children who arrive in the United States without a parent or guardian are classified as unaccompanied minors and sent to a shelter managed by the Office of Refugee Resettlement until they can be placed with a family member or foster home, a process outlined in federal law. The lawsuit argued that the administration's plan to expel the children violates protections under the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, a federal legislation passed in 2008. Stephen Miller, the deputy chief of staff for policy and homeland security and an architect of President Donald Trump's aggressive immigration crackdown, condemned the decision. Earlier this year, the Trump administration canceled a $200 million legal representation contract for 26,000 children who crossed the U.S. border as unaccompanied minors. President Trump said he will issue an executive order mandating identification for every voter, an announcement that follows his move in March, requiring proof of citizenship in federal elections and baseless claims of voter fraud to argue the 2020 presidential election was stolen from him. On Truth Social, he also said no mail-in voting, except for those that are very ill and the faraway military. That follows previous comments from Trump that he wants to eliminate mail-in voting, but a huge portion of Americans vote by mail these days. I spoke with USA Today government accountability reporter Erin Mansfield for more.
Erin, thanks for hopping on.
Thanks so much for having me.
So we know some fresh comments from Trump on the mail-in voting topic over the weekend. What did we hear from him earlier in August on the mail-in voting front?
He said August 18th that he wanted to get rid of mail-in voting, essentially. A few days before that, he actually told Fox News that it was a recommendation he heard from Russian President Vladimir Putin, who, according to Trump, said that the 2020 election was rigged because they have mail-in voting and you can't have honest elections with mail-in voting. Now, to be clear, Trump has had criticisms of mail-in voting for a very long time, and it has become kind of a popular target on the right. But yeah, he basically wanted to get rid of it throughout the United States. And I just have to be clear, I've spoken to experts about this, and presidents can't just up and decide whether states can use mail-in voting. These are laws that are usually passed by state legislatures, and it's not something that the president himself can just come in and stop.
Well, in those conversations you've been having with experts, what do they say about the security of these types of ballots?
That they are extremely secure. Everyone will acknowledge that there are kind of like a handful of cases that they've had, whether it's fraud or some kind of other suspicion related to mail-in ballots, but they make up such a tiny, tiny fraction that it doesn't sway elections, let alone a presidential election, which even in 2000 was decided by over 500 votes. It's very popular. A lot of Americans use it for a lot of different reasons. It's gone back and forth in who is most popular with and where. But in general, people tend to like mail-in voting as an option. They like to have the option, if they can't make it to the polls, to fill it out at home. United States ballots, they're very, very long. Like in Europe and a lot of other countries, they don't have, you're not going to have president all the way down to city council on some 4-page ballot. So a lot of Americans like to sit with the ballot at home, research the candidates, and make sure they're making informed decisions.
In terms of the popularity, where is mail-in voting trending? Is it fair to say it's increased in recent years?
Yeah, it keeps going up. One thing just to note is that 2020, we remember the height of the pandemic, mail-in voting was off the charts. So the best way to look at this from our perspective was actually 2016 to 2024, more non-pandemic presidential elections. And what we saw based on data from the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, which is one of the best sources we have for national data, we saw a 44% increase in the use of mail-in ballots. And we're seeing nationwide almost 30%, so a little under a third of voters choosing this option.
Big bump. And, curiously, mail-in voting is now more popular among Democrats, right, Aaron? I mean, how has that shifted over the years?
It depends on how far back you want to say is historical. But 2008 was actually kind of like this turning point. Senator John McCain, at the time, a Republican candidate for president, was trying to get people to use mail in voting because they wanted to be able to know that someone went and voted for them and not have to go back and knock on that person's door. And over the years, that has become very popular. A lot of people are like, oh, if they voted early, let's not waste our resources. Let's get the ones who we've called 16 times and need to get out to the polls and need to give a ride or something like that. But back in 2008, we got some data from the MIT Elections Lab, many thanks to Charles Stewart, where back in 2008, it was almost even. About 19% of Republicans use mail in ballots versus 18% of Democrats. And basically, since then, it's become more and more popular among Democrats. It went crazy in 2020, and it stayed more popular among Democrats. That's not necessarily everywhere in the country. We've actually seen in North Carolina, it's kind of swung back and forth. In 2024, North Carolina absentee ballots were more popular among Republicans. North Carolina has not gone for a Democrat in a presidential election since 2008. So even in years when Democrats used more of the absentee ballots, the Democrats still lost. And, Donald Trump won in 2024. And yes, in North Carolina, there were more Republicans who voted absentee ballot. But based on historic trends, you might think he probably was going to win anyway. He won every swing state in 2024. So yeah, these have become more popular with Democrats. Historically, these were something that were more used by rural and older voters, and those are populations that skew Republican. As states have loosened their laws and said you don't only have to be disabled or only 65, or you don't only have to have a health condition, or you don't only have to be outside of your county, that is part of the rub when, some people have a problem with mail-in ballots. It's who's using them, who are they popular with? It's gone back and forth.
All right, this was an eye-opening piece. Aaron Mansfield covers government accountability for USA Today. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
More than 600 people were killed and more than 1,500 injured in a devastating earthquake in Afghanistan, according to authorities earlier today. It's one of the country's worst earthquakes ever, though several others in recent years have killed thousands of people. Afghanistan is prone to deadly earthquakes, particularly in the Hindu Kush mountain range, where the Indian and Eurasian tectonic plates meet. The disaster will stretch resources of a country already grappling with a number of humanitarian crises and a recent drop in foreign aid. More than a decade ago, several dozen billionaires signed a pledge, vowing to give away half or more of their wealth. Are they actually doing it? I spoke with USA Today personal finance reporter Daniel Devise for more. As always, thanks for hopping on, Daniel.
Oh, my pleasure.
So going back to 2010, just what was this giving pledge?
It seems like a quaint bygone era now, but back in 2010, 57 billionaires pledged to give at least half of their wealth to charity. This was organized by Bill and then Melinda Gates and Warren Buffett. And it was cool because at the time, people were wondering if the sort of tech billionaires were going to give back. And they seemed to sort of emphatically answer that question with this pledge.
All right, so fast forward to this year and this summer. What did this recent report find about whether they're holding on to their end of the pledge?
Yeah, this is from the Institute for Policy Studies, which is a pretty lefty think tank. And it's assailing, I would say, a somewhat progressive initiative. So it's kind of interesting. Anyway, the report found that out of the 57 original billionaire pledgers, the 32 who are still billionaires have seen their wealth grow by 283%. And of the 22 pledgers who are deceased, only 8 fulfilled their pledges, by which I mean they gave away half or more of their wealth by the time of their death. And the other thing, which is a little complicated, is about 4/5 of the charitable giving by the pledgers went to private foundations, which is important because it means it didn't necessarily go directly to any charitable cause.
Well, how much has the giving pledge, I guess, brought for charity writ large? What has it done kind of on the positive end?
Oh, goodness. I mean, bear in mind that like half of us out there don't give anything to anybody. So to fault these people, you have to remember that. Half of American households don't give to charity, period. Bill Gates has given, by this report's account, $55 billion to charity. Mr. Buffett, $51 billion. Michael Bloomberg, $20 billion. Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Priscilla Chan, $10 billion. George Lucas of Star Wars fame and Melody Hobson, his wife, have given $4 billion. So there's been lots of giving. The point of this report is that it's a kind of a mixed bag, that some people are stepping up to this pledge and others are kind of taking their time.
Well, I want to go back to what you said a moment ago, Daniel, about private foundations. I mean, that was clearly one major point of contention in this report. What were some of the specific issues really around that?
Okay, so there's lots and lots of money, billions and billions of dollars that are held in these huge private foundations. These are the ones you hear about on like public radio, brought to you by the blah blah foundation. And some of the foundations are sitting on billions and billions of dollars in wealth. And the guy from the institute says, when does it come out again? Are we going to create these dynastic family foundations? Is the money just going to end up parked on the sort of charity sidelines for decades in an intermediary? That's kind of the fear.
Well, how do folks from the Giving Pledge, I guess, from these efforts respond to the report and some of these criticisms?
I think both the Giving Pledge organization and this institute are on the same page. I think both groups really think charitable giving is super important. I guess the Giving Pledge people said, hey, this is groovy, but they did say that the report draws on incomplete financial data. And to be fair, it's hard to get complete financial data on these billionaires, and that it employs inconsistent methodology. And basically, the point of this Giving Pledge, they say that it's fundamentally changed the way that these billionaires think about giving back, and it's organized them in an important way. So these billionaires are doing something really positive for the community, and that's great.
Right, Daniel Devise covers personal finance for USA Today. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
And it's kind time again. The first Monday of every month, we bring you a positive story to brighten your day. And today it's all about smiles. Meet Ellie, a golden retriever with the heart of an angel, and her military veteran owner, Kevin. Together, they're spreading joy wherever they go, from hospital rooms to military bases. Humankind's Ronnie Lee has the story.
When Army veteran Kevin trained his golden retriever Ellie as a therapy dog, he never imagined they'd create so many special moments, and a mission was born.
At the time, my wife worked in the hospital, so we spent a lot of time, with these patients, and seeing the impact started this thing that we called our mission to spread smiles. Our goal is if we can make one person smile, it's worth it.
What started as hospital visits soon blossomed into something extraordinary. From children's hospitals to military bases and eventually across the globe. But one moment with a little boy still stands out from all the rest.
He was in an area where there's precautions, where he's not supposed to have dog visits, but they moved him out of that area because he's on end-of-life care and only had a few days to live, and he wanted to see a dog as soon as the door opens. He's like, is that Allie? I'm like, it is. And he proceeds to tell me everything about Allie. In this conversation, he's like, this is one of the best moments of my life. I think it's just one of those things where medicine can only do so much, and sometimes a smile makes such an impact.
These moments of connection are why Kevin believes therapy dogs can transform lives. Their impact goes beyond medicine, offering something perhaps even more powerful: hope.
To find more of USA Today's Humankind stories, go to usatoday.com/humankind. And thanks for listening to The Excerpt. You can get the podcast wherever you get your pods. And as always, you can email us at podcasts@usatoday.com. I'm Taylor Wilson. I'll be back tomorrow with more of The Excerpt from USA Today.